What is going on, my friends? Thanks for joining me, Andrew Axum with Axum Outdoor Adventures. I am just out here enjoying a beautiful spring evening. It's started to say early April. By God, it's late April, April 28th, and just enjoying this weather out here. I have my time approved off for the upcoming East Coast Slingshot tournament, so hope to see a lot of you guys there. Speaking of a lot of you, I am creeping up on 1,800 subscribers now. That means 1,800 of you guys like me. Well, maybe 1,700 of you guys like me, but that's more people than I've ever had like me before. But you know what would be cooler? If I had 2,000 of you like me. Had a great time up at the recent Midwest Spring Sling put on by John Mannon, and I had the chance to speak to John on the phone today. We talked for about an hour, had a really good conversation, and one of the things we talked about was misconceptions we had about slingshots when we started slinging. It's a video I'd been wanting to do to talk about for a little while because I know I had some misconceptions, and I assume a lot of newer shooters do, and John and I compared notes and we kind of had some of the same ones. So I thought I would just talk tonight about some of the misconceptions that I had. One of the first things John and I talked about was how quickly we were able to progress in this sport compared to when we started. And I'm going to take you guys on a little walk here for this one. But John had mentioned when he started shooting that he saw a lot of the great shooters on YouTube. I am not one of them, by the way. I'm a mediocre shooter, but I have fun with the sport. But he saw some of the great shooters, Fowler, he mentioned in particular, that he thought he would never, be able to do anything close to what those guys are doing. And I can relate to that. And I wanted to show you guys in my backyard here. I just had a stump removed. Right there. But when I first started shooting, I would come out here and I would stand over in this corner and shoot at cans on that stump. And I don't know exactly what that is. It's only about 5 to 7 meters. I don't know. But I couldn't hit a pop can from that distance, 5 to 7 meters. And I'm still not a great shooter, but I can definitely hit a pop can most of the time at that distance. And so John and I both kind of agreed that that was one of the misconceptions that we had, was that this was a sport that took a lot to get that good at. And one of the things that he mentioned, and I agree with, was that a lot of us, our first experience with slingshots was the old wrist rocket with the 90-pound tubes. I don't know what they actually are, but those big old tubes that we had on our wrist rockets. And that's an unfortunate introduction to slingshots for a lot of people. It's not really unfortunate. I had a lot of fun playing with one in the 80s, but I thought that that's what slingshots were. And even today, John mentioned this, if you go into Walmart, you see, and this is starting to change a little bit, but you see the Barrett, or what are they? The Barnett Black Widows, the Daisy B-52s or whatever they are, the old wrist rockets, and that's most people's, even still, if you go and you find a slingshot in the store, that's what it is. I think with social media, YouTube and stuff, anybody that has an interest in slingshots, even if they see one of those in Walmart and that kind of strikes their memories or their interest, at least with social media now, they can kind of go down the rabbit hole and learn about more modern slingshots with flat bands and all the stuff. But that's a misconception that I had. That's what slingshots were, and I think it still is going on. John mentioned it, and I agree. You go into a Walmart or whatever, and that's all you see. I said that's changing because Walmart is starting to get, and it's not just Walmart, but they're the main vendor, retailer I can think of right now. But yeah, you're starting to see, last time I was in there, I think I saw a flat band slingshot in there. So that's really cool. So that kind of leads me to misconception number 2 I'm going to talk about. And when people start discovering on social media modern slingshotters with the flat bands and stuff, people assume, oh, I have to have 1 million frames to be part of this hobby, part of this community, and you don't. In reality, if you have 1 frame, you're a slingshotter. And frames are free in that you can go cut your own off of a tree. This is one I cut. It's not the most beautiful, but I do have some really nice natties here. Danny Strite makes some absolutely gorgeous ones. I have a couple right here that I've got from him over time, and I hate to shoot them really because they're so pretty. But you don't have to have 1 million frames. As a matter of fact, if you can stop that urge, that addiction to collect them, which you don't really need to, I'll get to that in a minute. But if you can control that and stick to 1 or 2 frames, you're going to be a better slinger, at least right off out of the gate, because you're going to stick with 1 and be more consistent. Now, most of us can't do that because we get that addiction that we want more and more of. And that leads to a misconception that I had when I got interested in slingshots, and that was that it was going to be another hobby that I was going to pour money into. And I have a lot of hobbies, and some of them are more expensive than others. But one great thing about slingshots is that it is not a super expensive hobby. I'm trying to adjust that so that light's not as blinding. Let me sit down here. So it is not a super expensive hobby. As I said, you can get frames for free. You can get bands. I mean, you can make bands out of resistance band material if you have some of that laying around. Read on Slingshot forums. Some of the older guys used to use the TheraBand Gold. And I think there are some people that still do. Latex is not that expensive. You can get a roll from for just about $15 from most places. I happen to shoot Simple Shot. I've experimented with a lot of different bands, and there's a lot of good band material out there, but it's just like a shirt. You have to find the one that fits you, and I tried a lot of different ones and found I liked Simple Shot the best. You can get that, by the way, through my link. I am a associate, but I would, whatever you like, you can find the material, and it's not that expensive of a hobby. Right here, I have a brand new pack. I just bought these for the East Coast tournament upcoming, a new box of 8mm ammo, and I think 1,500 of them was like $20, something like that. Anyway, not a super expensive hobby, and that's great because if you are familiar with other like archery or firearms, any kind of marksmanship sports, they tend to be pretty expensive, and this one is cheap as far as those go. Speaking of archery, marksmanship, and other types of it, that brings me up to another misconception that I've heard other people say, and they think that in order to get into the slingshot community, hobby, or sport, that you have to be an excellent marksman, you have to be somebody that's interested in hunting and firearms and all these things. And while there are certainly a lot of people in the community that fall into those categories, there's a lot of people that don't have any previous experience with marksmanship. It's just something they enjoy. And actually recently, there was some new shooters at the tournament, and I'm not going to say they didn't have any previous experience with marksmanship, but some new shooters showed up that did very well at the East Coast tournament. So it's a very eclectic community. If you think because you don't fit the typical outdoorsman demographic that it's not something for you, you should come to a tournament and hang out with people, and you will see that that is very much not the case. Noticed when I was shooting, it might be just about time to replace my can. As I mentioned though, slingshot, the hobby it's a fairly cheap hobby. You can use, I can just see me shoving that through my hand. You can use cheap recycled stuff. You know, you can shoot at cans, or you can get targets. These targets are actually Simple Shot targets, and again, I am an associate. I'll put my link down in the description so you can get some of the stuff if you're interested, but the point of this video wasn't to sell you stuff. these are great targets though, and they're not really expensive. I think they're 20 something. I don't know the exact price, but they're on there and they're affordable, as are aluminum cans and steel cans. And so that's kind of the point. You don't have to sink a lot of money into the hobby. But as I was talking about tournaments a minute ago, I really shouldn't do that with my good knife. Did it without running a pole through my hand. As I was talking about tournaments, I know a lot of people's first experience with slingshot tournaments is on YouTube, and a lot of what you see on there, at least some of the older videos when I first started watching slingshot videos, was a lot of the highlights of the top slingers. And yes, that is exciting to see, and it's fun to watch. But a lot of people I've heard talk about, there we are, they don't want to come to a tournament because they're intimidated. They don't want to stand and shoot in front of a silent crowd, and that is kind of a misconception. That's not generally the way tournaments are. Each tournament is a little bit different, but generally if you see a video like that where everybody's quiet and watching intently, it's some kind of shoot off between two top tier shooters. You can come to a tournament and shoot at your own pace, and that's not the environment you're going to be subjected to. Matter of fact, if you come to a tournament, you're going to find that most people there are thrilled that you're there. They want to help you learn, and that's something else that was kind of, I guess, a misconception that I had, is that this community would be like most other hobby communities, and they're not. You've heard me say it probably till you're sick of hearing me say it on here, but this whole community is different, and it's just something, this whole sport is something that I've found that helps my mental health, my physical health. I get outside, I get fresh air, I concentrate on something that makes me happy instead of bills and death and taxes and all the certain things in life. But this community, it's a bug that not everybody has, and that's something, once I got it, I didn't understand. I thought, oh, I gotta share this with everybody. Not everybody gets it. Not everybody catches that bug, but those of us who do appreciate the other ones so much that we fly across the country and drive across the country to spend our free time with each other. So it's such a wonderful community, sport, and hobby, and that's why I like to share it. I hope that this video maybe has helped some people with some misconceptions about maybe getting a little more involved with the community and the sport. And also, it's not just the tournaments. You can engage with people online, and the community is just as helpful there. But you'll find that if you come out and participate with us, you'll really enjoy it, and I hope to see some of you guys out there. Also, don't forget, go down and hit subscribe and like and all that stuff. And thanks for hanging out with me, friends. It's been a lot of fun. Talk to you next time.